morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. We're going to give it a few minutes before we start properly while we're admitting people and people are joining, etc. But just wanted to say thanks for taking a bit of time out of your day. There should be a Q&A facility for you to ask any questions that you have throughout the webinar. So feel free to type them into that. We'll come back to them at the end. Any details on any cases that you want to discuss, we can pick those up as well, and we'll do all that at the end also. What I'm going to cover today is both bridging and buy-to-let, bit of an overview of West One, bit of a refresher of our proposition and what we're here for. I've got, if anyone's just seen LinkedIn or received an email from me, I do have some breaking news that I will be revealing as well in relation to our bridging proposition, which is very, very positive. And then I'm going to run through buy-to-let. So buy-to-let, we'll give a run through of the proposition from all ranges and etc., and a bit of an update where we sit on buy-to-let as well. I'm joined by Ali, who is the telephone BDM for the region, telephone BDM extraordinaire. So this no doubt is the guy that answers most of your queries while I'm out and about driving and chatting to people, etc. So the unsung hero of our region. So Ali's on hand. I'm sure he'll be managing most of the questions and coming back to you with answers, etc., and interjecting whenever he wants to. So just going to give it another couple of minutes just to see if there's any straddlers that are due to join. Once again, going to run through bridging and buy-to-let, and got some breaking news. So stand by for that. Some very exciting hot off the press news, which I'm delighted with. For those of you that have any terms out from us already, it's just worth reiterating that our today's the last day of our Valentine's incentive that's run from Valentine's Day until the end of Feb. So what that was is all signed bridging applications that were received by us within the 14th to the 29th of February got entry into a draw for the chance to win one of two virtual experience day vouchers, 250 quid. So if you've got any that you're waiting to hear back on the client from, get them in, try and get them into us today. You'll still have an entry to that draw for anything received up till 5:30 this evening, and then the draw will be made tomorrow. So touch wood, I could be reaching out to you tomorrow to congratulate you on winning. I think we're probably about ready to start. So guys, thanks for joining. I'm Jez, as hopefully you will know, that's why you've joined. I am Head of Sales North for West One in the bridging and buy-to-let area. So player manager for the Midlands, which I cover alongside my tag team partner that's on the call, Ali. Give him a wave out. There you go. So guys, so I want to thank you for taking a bit of time out of your day. I want to talk firstly about bridging because I mean, we're about to break the record for most bridging applications ever received by West One, but I want to take you back a little bit for this month. I want to take you back a little bit just in terms of bridging in general and West One's position for those of you that aren't aware. So West One are a massive player in the bridging space. So we're second only to Together in the market in terms of business written and completed on each month or each year. And I think with our friends over at Together, you've got to factor in the fact that they probably do roughly half of the business is direct to consumer. So from a broker introduced perspective, West One probably complete the most bridging business in the market. Now, we've been in the bridging market since 2005, so 2005. And it was very much a London-based bridging proposition, right? West One, W1 is the Mayfair postcode. That's where the business was born out of, that London market. And I think, I don't like to use the word neglected, but certainly West One's focus was never north of Watford, anywhere outside of that M25 that M25 mark, and until probably about 18 months ago. So about 18 months ago, I think the business decided that we want to try and replicate what we've done in London, because we see phenomenal amount of business coming out of that London market, and great support and that's been built up over the years. And why couldn't we replicate that everywhere else? Which is why I'm in situ now, along with Ali, looking after the Midlands, as per the rubbish accents. We've got a girl in the north now that is been in situ probably just shy of 12 months, and they're starting to build some real traction in the north. Southwest we are recruiting for, so we're trying to get someone in the southwest that is really going to come in there and make a difference and help us in that region. We've certainly seen huge increases in the Midlands. I mean, the business last year is phenomenal. It's a record-breaking year, and the start of this year has been phenomenal as well. So thank you for those of you that are already on the train supporting us. For me, bridging, I genuinely can sit here and I could talk to any of you and say, I think West's one of the best bridging lender in the market, and there's a variety of reasons for that. But when you look at bridging, the most important thing has to be the conversion rate, because a deal's only a deal when the deal gets done. And if a deal doesn't pay out and it doesn't, your application goes into a lender and it doesn't complete, it's just a waste of time for you. It's a waste of time for your client, waste of money, waste of time for the lender. It's no good. And the latest data that I've been party to, which is the ASTL data for Q3. So I believe the Q4 data is about to drop, or has very recently dropped, and I haven't seen it yet. But I'm going back to Q3, and what the data showed there was the market average conversion was 21%. So 1 in 5, call it, deals that go into lenders end up completing. There'll be a variety of reasons of why that data seems quite low, and that'll be clients changing their mind, it'll be deals not working, it'll be lenders moving goalposts, it'll be down vals, a variety of different reasons why the conversion rate's 21. The West 1 conversion was 45% for the same period. So we're converting at more than double the market average. Now, what that shows, I mean, we don't move goalposts. We're pretty good at sniffing out a deal up front if it's one for us or not. And I think that you should take a lot of confidence in that West 1 can actually get the deal done. That's what we're here for. It's what we do best. We want to pay out. We've got great underwriters that understand the market. We've got a great sales team that can tell you very quickly if a deal is yes for us or it's not for us. Obviously, there's mitigating circumstances sometimes that we're not aware of day one, and obviously the valuation needs to come back okay. But we're not in the business of saying yes to deals that ultimately don't go anywhere. So I think that's a really important one, is to bear in mind using a lender that's got good conversion. I think the second, and it goes hand in hand, bridging, right? Bridging's supposed to be fast, speed. It's what people are using bridging for. And speed is one of our key selling points. And I know that every lender will sit there and tell you that we're quick, we've got good service, etc. But independent data will back it up for us. So again, the latest data that came out around speed, and I think this has moved by a couple of days because I have seen some other figures, but the one that I'm most familiar with was, again, I think it was Q3 last year. The average time from app to completion in the market, bridging, was 58 days. West 1 for the same period was 27 days. So we're less than half the average speed than the market. Now, there's a variety of different things that will help that, and going back to the conversion, about one of the things that will no doubt help conversion is how quickly we can complete on stuff. But one of the real key selling points for us in our bridging proposition is the fact that we instruct solicitors day one with no undertaking from the client in the majority of cases. So what that means is we do separate representation. Our solicitor that's working on behalf of West 1, which 95% of the time would be a firm called Graphene Legal, who have representation in our office in Watford. They're an independent firm, but they work from the same office. So it's not in-house legals, but it's kind of the next best thing. If we instruct them day one. So the client doesn't pay anything for us to instruct our legals. So therefore, the client doesn't have any fee for the deal up front, which is nice. But also, the client would never pay anything unless the deal completes. And if the deal does complete, the solicitor charge is retaining the facility anyway. So there's no payment from the client for the legals. If you flip that on its head, that means the solicitor only gets paid if the deal completes. which means the solicitor is really engaged in the process, really quick, really responsive, doesn't ask stupid questions, creative when they need to be. The amount of times I'm out and about on the road and I hear, yeah, the lender's okay, but it gets caught up in the legals and stuff. I've very, very rarely heard any issues with our legals. Now, there are a couple of exceptions to that rule. So if we're doing a deal in Scotland, because we do lend in Scotland, it is a different legal system. We appoint a different solicitor. They would charge an undertaking. And then there would be some mitigating circumstances where we would also charge an undertaking as well, or the solicitor would charge an undertaking. Probably, for example, things like where the client's a foreign national or something like that. But 95% of the time, solicitors are instructed day one. So when you get a deal in, and you send it to Ali and I, we'll return terms very quickly. If we can give you what you want, we follow that straight up with formal terms and an application. As soon as that application signed up comes back in, and that can be an electronic signature, that gets handed over to the underwriters. The underwriter will commence their underwrite, will instruct solicitors, and will go out for valuation quotes if applicable on day one. And we have a direct relationship with a lot of valuers, and we can be really rapid with them. I actually had a conversation on Monday with someone that had an urgent deal that needed to be done on Thursday of next week, and it was a bit of a quirky property. I think it was a HMO. It might have been a hybrid HMO multi-unit. Anyway, the point of the guy was we need an AVM done, and we couldn't do an AVM on that because of the type of property it was. But I was like, mate, there's no panic. I'll get a val done on this, and we'll get it completed in no time. The valuer was able to go out on the Wednesday, and the instruction would have been Tuesday. So the valuer could get it covered the next day. So we've got these direct relationships with valuers. And again, it depends where it is in the country, the property is, etc. But they can be rapid to get full vals done. And we do have the option to look at AVMs, and we've actually expanded something I'll be communicating around, but it's not the breaking news, that we've actually expanded our AVM offering a little bit, which I'll touch on when I digest the information a bit more. It's not one for now. But so speed is important. The third thing, because let's face it, price is important. It's probably not as important as it is in the reg world and the buy-to-let world, but price is still important because you don't want to be paying through the nose for stuff. Now, we've recently had the ability to be a bit keener on pricing. So we're certainly not going to be a market leader from a price perspective, but from the service that you get and where we sit with the speed and conversion, I actually think we're competitive and probably the most competitive in the market. So I've got pricing today from 0.85. So if I was doing a residential deal that was for a clean client that wasn't top end LTV, it'd be priced at 0.85. If the LTV was getting a bit toppier, it'd probably be 0.9. So I think with some of our more direct competitors, your MTs of the world, your Togethers of the world, probably stacks up quite nicely from a price perspective. So the call to action for me would be put us in the mix, let us quote you, because rest assured, once you use us and you get exposed to the service and how good the underwriters are, that carries a lot of weight for you wanting to use us again, because it's second to none from a service perspective. What supports those three things? For me, they're the most important three things in the market: conversion, speed, price. What supports all that is the broadest proposition in the market, which we have. So we do everything. So West One will lend on regulated and non-regulated residential. We'll lend on commercial and semi-commercial, and we'll lend on land both with and without planning. We can be first and second charge on both residential and commercial, and we can lend from £75,000 gross, which is our minimum, right up to £50 million plus for the right deal. So we've historically been known as the go-to lender for the large loans, but I think we've really diversified away from that and just want to be the go-to lender for bridging, regardless of what it looks like. In terms of who we'll lend to, we will lend to any entity. So we can lend to your personal name, LLP, limited company, SPV, PLC, trading businesses. We can lend to trusts. We can lend to SIPs. We can lend to to charities. You name it, we can lend to it. But we can also lend to expats and foreign nationals, both foreign nationals in the UK and outside of the UK, and offshore companies also. And we're comfortable with heavy adverse, we're comfortable with rebridging, we're comfortable with refurb. We literally can look at look at anything. Now, there's a couple of things that aren't our bag. We don't do the smaller development finance deals where you're trying to lend against a GDV. We don't do that. We will lend against what the current value of the property is, but we can cross charge and we can lend for that heavy refurb and towards works if that's what you're looking to do. It's a real good bridging proposition. And what I always say to everyone is, because everyone that you see will tell you how good the bridging proposition is, the proof is in the pudding when it comes to bridging. And I'll sit here and look you in the eye that I would be delighted if you give us a try, because I know and I have full faith that you'll want to use us again. That's where the business has been built, and that's why we do have months where we do over 100 mil of bridging business, and we did over £1 billion of short-term lending in 2023. So the proof's in the pudding, put us in the mix. And what I've nearly forgot the breaking news. I'm going to deliver some breaking news now. So where we sit loan to value wise in our proposition, land at the minute will be at 50% gross. Commercial and semi-commercial, general rule of thumb is we'll be at 65% gross, depending on what it is. If it was a particularly quirky commercial, we'd probably limit that a bit more. And residential, we've been sitting at 70% gross across both reg and non-reg. However, today I can reveal that with immediate effect, we now have the ability to be back at 75% for unregulated residential purchase transactions. So if you have a non-reg or unreg purchase, we can support that to 75%. So I will be sharing about that from the rooftop because it's quite a fundamental change that we've made. Clearly, that's where we used to be, and I know there's some in the market that are there, but I certainly know that we lose some business to some competitors because we limit at 70 instead of going to 75. So hot off the press, 75 is back in bridging for clean clients. Let me caveat that: purchase only, unregulated transactions. So that is some real good news. But as I say, put us in the mix, let us quote you. We'll find a deal that works eventually, I'm sure, and give us a try, and I'm sure there'll be you'll be very satisfied, as will your clients. Buy to let, and I'll come back to any questions at the end, but buy to let's an interesting one because where we sit in the bridging market, it's fundamentally different to buy-to-let. So buy-to-let essentially has nothing in common with bridging at West One other than Ali and I. So your underwriters aren't the same, your administrators aren't the same, your completions team aren't the same, even as far as the ultimate management of the business isn't the same. They're separate, and they're almost run as separate businesses within West One. What's common is the sales team. So there's certainly some synergy between bridging and buy-to-let, and I think it was November of 2022 we decided to merge the sales team, and that was really when the strategy kicked off to grow our presence outside of the South East. So you're going to be getting a dedicated buy-to-let underwriter that understands buy-to-let. Like on the flip side, you'll get a dedicated bridging underwriter on the bridging side. Now, if I've got the buy-to-let market, this is what I love to do. So if any of you've seen this before, forgive me, but this is how I like to illustrate it. There's your buy-to-let market. Together are here, the high street are here. As you go up that risk curve, the lender's appetite increases, and so does the price. So generally speaking, in buy-to-let, your lender that you know will do most of the deals, but probably at the more expensive end of the market, or certainly are at the most expensive end of the market. Together, the high street's down here, cheaper, but risk appetite's narrowed. West One, along that scale, feature about here, here, and here. So we almost have three propositions built into one. So what I mean by that is we want some of the business that, yeah, we're not competing with the high street on price, but actually if it falls out with the high street, there'll be times when we want that first bite of the cherry. We have a standard range that is priced really competitively. We have some leverage tools, which I'm going to go through and I'll talk to you about as well in a minute, that could really be the right option for you to come to us first. Then we have a specialist range, which kind of sits around the middle of the market. So competitors on that would be where you start to look at more quirky properties and things, and you know the high street aren't going to touch it, so you need to look at a specialist lender. And then we have a proposition at this end of the market that doesn't have the risk appetite of a Together and lenders that are of that ilk at this end. So it's a step down, but it would be a step down in price as well, for the more quirky deals where you're a bit more limited with lenders, and that's kind of our complex range. Now, what underpins everything that we do in buy-to-let, and it's worth noting, buy-to-let, we've been doing buy-to-let about 5 years at West One. So 2019 it was launched. Andrew Ferguson is the guy that heads it up, so he's a real respected industry figure, ex-Foundation, ex-Axis, for those of you that be aware of him. He's been at West One since inception of buy-to-let. He was the guy that kind of developed it. Ali, how long have you been here, Ali?
Sorry, mate. I've been here since 2021, so 3 years nearly.
So Ali came in when it was relatively in its infancy, and then I've just celebrated my 2-year anniversary a couple of weeks back. So buy-to-let's developed into, I wouldn't say we're a major player in the buy-to-let space, but we're certainly a go-to lender for the more specialist cases these days. We probably complete around 25 mil a month, about 300 mil a year of buy-to-let. The market's been a bit restricted because we did have more ambitious growth plans than that. But as I'm sure everyone that's on the call will know, it's been challenging, right? It's been a challenging time in the buy-to-let market ever since the kind of mini budget and the swap rate increases, etc. So what underpins our buy-to-let proposition are specialist criteria that is specialist, but it's just for us, it's like water off a duck's back, it's standard stuff. So, for example, we don't credit score. So a lot of lenders at this end of the scale will still credit score your client, and depending on their appetite for business would depend on whether that passes or fails. With us, we don't credit score, we credit check. We use a company called Equifax. That's the only credit reference agency that we use, and we'll check with them. Now, in addition to that, we don't have a minimum income. So again, a lot of lenders, particularly lenders that are in this kind of market here, will have a minimum income requirement. So we just say we want to see an income that is sufficient to sustain your lifestyle. So there's no set amount of what that needs to be. So therefore, you haven't got to have 20,000, 25,000, whatever it is, which is quite nice. Also, we can go up to the age of 80 at application, which is quite nice for the older borrower. We're comfortable, obviously, with limited company. SPVs, we're comfortable with LLPs, and we're comfortable with your personal name. There's no rate loading for them. All the products are the same, regardless of the mechanism that you're borrowing through. There's bits of adverse credit that we can ignore, and I'll talk about some of our other adverse initiatives in a minute, but things like arrears that relate to utility or communications don't factor into our credit check. So if it went to default or CCJ, it would, but if it was arrears, it's not factored in. And also, we allow one instance of a late payment without classing it as arrears. So, for example, if somebody had a status 1 on a mortgage credit line, and the reality of what happened with that was it was paid back within 30 days, so the payment was made up within 30 days, we would ignore that instance. Whereas that would probably kill anyone that's credit scoring, particularly if it was recent. So with us, you had one instance of that, and if you evidence it was paid in the 30 days, we'll ignore it as well. So that kind of underpins everything we do, right? So that's just standard across the range. So then we've got 3 product ranges, as I alluded to. Your standard range is for normal flat house masonette, nothing quirky about the property. Nothing really quirky about the applicant. The applicant could be a first-time landlord, as long as they've got a footprint on the resi. They could be a portfolio landlord, and I'll touch on portfolio landlords at the end, but we do a lot of portfolio buy-to-let business because we have a real nice approach to it. But portfolio landlord, inexperienced first-time landlord, all acceptable on the standard range. The standard range is going to be the range that sources the best. Now, one of the tools that we've got, and I remember getting into countless arguments with people on LinkedIn back in the early days, but it seems very commonplace now, is we operate a fee scale model, meaning you have the option of taking a product with a higher fee, and the trade-off of that is getting a product with a lower rate. Now, purely a leverage tool. I'm sure no one wants to wake up and pay a massive fee on the mortgage, but sometimes beggars can't be choosers in the market when they've got properties they want to hold on to and they're stuck on lenders' SVRs and they've got nowhere to turn. So we operate a 4-stage model. So we have a 2.5% fee, we have a 4.99% fee, we have a 7% fee, and then we have a market biggest 9.99% fee. Now, I believe it's the market biggest, but I think what you get as a payoff for that is the best leverage in the market. Now, don't quote me on that because things are changing every single day, but certainly at the most recent reprice for West One, our 9.99% product came with a 4.24 fixed rate for 5 years. That was the best leverage product in the market, meaning that the individual could borrow the most money on that product. You have the option. So they all work out the same over a 5-year period, roughly. The rate's about a 5.8% rate with a normal fee. It just steps down as the fee goes up. And over the 5 years, give or take, you work out pretty competitive range. There's a variety of different products. There's 2-year fixed. There's variable rates. There's variable rates that don't have ERCs. There's a green range, etc. One key thing that we've got on the specialist on the standard range to and that's essentially your clean clients. Oh, I think I dropped off there for a second. Hopefully I'm back. Can you hear me? Ali, give me a thumbs up. Yeah, got me. You have a W1 product range and then you have a W2 product range. So the only difference is purely adverse credit related. So W2 is loads more relaxed. Now, W2, so for example, if you had £1,000 default 5 years ago, you wouldn't qualify for W1 regardless if that was satisfied or not. That would rule you out of W1. And W2 would allow you to have £1,000 default last week as long as it was satisfied. So significantly different in terms of appetite for W1. I saw, is Chris Corn still on? I'm not sure if he's dropped off, but I know there's a few of our packager partners that have access to a packager exclusive W3 product range. That again, select few accounts that have got access to that, but that is even more relaxed again, where it only looks at the last 12 months and essentially ignores everything else over that. That is a product that if anyone has any questions about, we can always pick up after, and there's a few of our partners that have access to that to submit the business through as well. Now, specialist range. So that's standard. So source is the best, this end of the market. We're going to step up now to a bit more quirky. So our specialist range encompasses things like HMOs. Small HMOs up to 6 bed would fit in this range. Now, one of the nice bits of criteria we've got straight away is West One will do first-time landlord HMOs. Most lenders that do HMOs want you to have some sort of experience. We're fine with no experience. As long as you've got the footprint on your resi, we're comfortable with that. We'll also do first-time landlord on multi-unit freehold blocks. Again, we're talking smaller blocks, and what I mean by smaller blocks is up to 6 units. So we're completely comfortable with that first-time landlord as well. And then we have some real nice criteria that, again, for us, it's just second nature, but would rule you out with a lot of lenders. Things like we're not bothered if utilities are shared between units. So most lenders that do multi-unit freehold blocks will want individual separate utilities per unit. We're comfortable with shared. So one electricity bill covers the whole property is absolutely fine for us. We're also comfortable if the size is under 30 square meters per unit. So most lenders will want 30 square meters or more still on their units. We're not bothered. Now, there's a sense check because I've had some absolutely ridiculous ones that are like 11 and 12 square meters. So again, something like that we might not fancy. But certainly if you've got one where the 4 units, one's 35, there's 2 that are 25 and 1 that's 22, absolutely fine. We'll have no issue with that at all. Again, talk to us if you're in any doubts. But an add-on to like multi-unit freehold blocks, we can also look at multi-unit leasehold blocks. Comes along sometimes. We can also look at broken freehold as well. So where you'll have a multi-unit freehold block, but some of them have been sold off. As long as you've got at least 2 left on the freehold, we would be fine to take a look. So that's all really nice. We'll do flats above and probably next to commercial, including smellies, as we call them. So by smellies, I'm talking pubs, restaurants, takeaways, laundrettes, hairdressers, late night opening hour shops, bookies, that sort of thing. One of the great things about West One is, and again, one of the analogies I like to use for people are, other lenders will say, I don't know, I've got a property that is 2 doors down from a co-op that's open till 11 p.m. and you speak to another lender, the BDM will go, yeah, it should be okay, subject to valuer's comments, and well, 75% on that, no problem. And it goes through, it comes to Val, Val comes back, the Val comments that there's a co-op 2 doors down and that it's either not suitable security, or the lender then retrospectively decides to peg back the deal to a lower LTV. I'm sure if you could all raise your hand who's had an example that's similar to that, I'm sure there'd be a fair few hands up. That will never happen at West One. And the reason why, there you go, I've got a hand up from Andy. Thanks, Andy. That would never happen at West One. And I'll tell you the reason why. Because of the amount of bridging that we do, we actually have a team of employed valuers that work for us, and they support us with some of our buy-to-let transactions. So one of the things they would support us with, and again, I can see some names that are on here that we've done this with, would be we would refer it up to the valuers up front. We'd say, property here with the co-op 2 doors down. What are your thoughts LTV was? And they will come back and they'll say 70% loan to value. That 70% loan to value will then hold. That won't get retrospectively downgraded. Now, listen, don't get me wrong. It still needs a val, physical val, a valuer who's going to go in and check that structurally the property's okay, that the rental demand in the area is sufficient based on their expertise. But what they're not going to comment on is, oh, by the way, there's a co-op 2 doors down and therefore this isn't suitable security. We already know that. We've already agreed to be comfortable with it. So you won't get a retrospective downgrade on your LTV based on that. So real nice feature. And I mean, typically the rough rule of thumb is we'll probably be 65 if it's a smelly, but there's always a conversation to be had. I live in West Brom. For those of you that know West Brom, will know that there's not a chance in hell that we're going to lend on a flat above a kebab shop on the high street at more than 65% LTV. Not that there's anything wrong with West Brom High Street. That's where I was brought up, but we wouldn't be over 65%. But if we were lending on a beauty salon in Mayfair or a posh restaurant in Birmingham city centre, there'll be leeway to look at a higher LTV. That's why it's important to refer them in, and let's take a view when it's warranted. The last thing on specialist range are like corporate tenancies. It's hard. I call them hands-off corporate tenancy agreements, but I don't know what the proper name for them is. Corporate tenancies, sublet agreements, kind of rent-to-rent schemes, whatever you want to call it, guaranteed rent, where there's a third party in between the landlord and the tenant. Now, that could be housing association, it could be the local authority, it could be a charity, it could be Serco, it could be just a limited company. Regardless of who or what it is, we can look at it on our specialist range. Now, there's a couple of bits that we need to check. So to make it mortgageable with us, the term of the agreement can't be any longer than 5 years, and there needs to be a break clause in favour of the landlord, so the landlord can end the agreement by serving notice up to a period of 6 months. So typically 3-year agreements, and there's a 3-month break clause. Fine. Then the next big thing is just who's in it, who are the tenants. So we're not keen on ex-offenders. If it was a low LTV, we might take a look, but generally ex-offenders are one we steer clear from. But Serco are typically asylum seekers. We can get comfortable with that. And then there's a variety of different things. I mean, you can see all sorts of vulnerable tenants here, from homeless to drug rehabilitation to victims of domestic abuse, tons. We can look at all of them. The key for us is there can't be staff in the property. So if it was children and they needed round-the-clock care, that's not one for us. If it was people, like disabled people, or people like it was a glorified care home essentially, and there was staff there, that wouldn't be one for us. If there's carers that visit occasionally or social workers that would visit occasionally, we can take a view, but let's talk about these sort of agreements so we can look to lend on them. So that's essentially the specialist range. The great thing about the specialist range is exact same fee model, and also it has a W2 product range as well. So W2 product range exists for the specialist range also. And then finally, we have our complex range. So this is the range that's a bit more at this end of the market. So this encompasses everything from holiday lets. So holiday let and Airbnb, that has its own product. The biggest challenge at the moment with holiday lets and Airbnb is for us, it needs to fit normal AST rental, which can sometimes be a bit of a squeeze. We don't use a seasonal average. But the good points are we're comfortable with first-time landlord. So first time landlord doing an Airbnb is quite rare, and also we can do, and I think we're the only specialist lender that will allow you to do this. I know there's a couple of regional building societies that will, but obviously they'll be considerably stricter. But we can do multi-unit freehold blocks to be used as holiday lets, where they're rented unit by unit, which is quite a nice feature. So bear that in mind on holiday lets. We can look at first time buyer, first time landlord. This is the only product we have that has a minimum income. So 25,000 employed income is required for first time buyer, first time landlord. We also introduce a minimum age here of 25, whereas our standard minimum age is 21. So 25 grand, 25 years old, need to be employed, but we can do first time buyer, first time landlord. And there's no requirement for it to fit affordability as a resi or anything like that. Clearly, if an underwriter has an inkling that it's a backdoor residential, expect more questions. But if we're completely satisfied and you're satisfied that it's not, then you can we can take a view and just do it. Then we have a product that caters to large HMOs and multi-unit freehold blocks. So that takes over at the specialist range, which limits at 6. So this is 7 or more. The product says 7 up to 10, but I can look bigger than that by exception. This is where we start to look at commercial vals instead of just bricks and mortar, as we would do with the others. Now, we do ask for these to be referred in, just so we can get a look at the property, because, again, particularly by me, certainly, there's a lot of 8-bed HMOs that have still got roller shutter doors in downstairs because it's been very poorly converted from a shop. Something like that, we're not going to want to be 75% on, but look, a large, big house that's now like an 8-unit multi-unit or something, it would be absolutely fine at 75. But we say let us cast an eye over them before they come in. And then the big one where we write a lot of business on is expat and foreign national products. 2 separate products, 2 separate approaches, but a couple of similarities. So we use the Financial Action Task Force grey list and blacklist in order to ascertain whether where the person is from or living is acceptable or not. So if you're from or living in a country that is on the grey list or on the blacklist, we won't lend to you. So you need to be in a country that's not on those lists. The one exception to that rule is the fact that the United Arab Emirates are on the grey list, but we can look at lending in Dubai. So again, it's by referral, but Dubai can be okay. The other thing that the 2 products have in common is that we generally want to see a UK mortgage credit footprint already. So we won't do a first-time buyer for someone that's an expat or a foreign national. We want you to have a mortgage credit footprint. We do have the ability to take a view if you own a property in the UK already unencumbered, but we generally want that to be a couple of years at least that you've owned it. So situations where someone's bought it on a bridge 6 months ago and it's the only one that they've got, that ain't for us. We want you to already have had one here. Generally, we want a mortgage track record, or we want some ownership with a bit of tenure. Now, where the 2 products differ is foreign nationals limit at 65% LTV and will only lend to a UK-based SPV on foreign national. Whereas expat, we can go to 75% LTV and we can lend both to personal name partnership or limited company SPV. That's the whole product range. There's a couple of bits that I just want to cover. So 90 grand is the minimum property value. That was relatively recently reduced from 125. So 90,000 is minimum property val. On bridging, just to add, the minimum property val is 150. So it is separate. With buy to let, we have a great approach for portfolio landlords, and I call it the best of both, and I always think of Holvis when I do it. So a lot of lenders, particularly lenders that are at this end of the market that do portfolios, will do one facility covering the properties. So 20 properties, one facility covering all 20. Nice and easy, but very restrictive for the borrower if their circumstances were to change. So, for example, they wanted to sell 5 of them, they have to go back to the lender, ask for permission, they might need new valuations done, etc. With the way we do it, we do individual loans across the facility. So if it's 20 properties, we do 20 loans. Now, the best of both comes in because from an admin perspective, we treat it as one deal. So you would only key one deal, we would replicate it all in the background for you. You would upload documents on one deal, and And that's fine. Ali's throwing me off because he's moving around, moving around the office. But you essentially just have one deal to do, but it's 20 loans, so it's a great way of maintaining that flexibility for the client. West One don't stress the background portfolio, and we don't have any arduous underwriting. So things like cash flow forecast, assets and liabilities, business plans, we don't need any of that. Just need the portfolio spreadsheet. We can use yours if all the information's there. Keep one deal, we replicate in the background. We do tons and tons of portfolios for borrowers and brokers that support us on that. That's it from me. I want to open the floor up to Ali if he's got anything to add, or see if there's any questions around the room that I can cover while I'm here. Do we have any questions, Matt?
No, the Q&A is empty. So yeah, the floor's open to everyone if they want to ask any questions. More than happy to answer them.
Cool. I mean, if there's no questions, then we can bid farewell and say thanks for joining, guys. But if you do have any, or you have any cases that you want to discuss, Ali and I are around. We can have a chat about them today. If you want me to come in and come and meet you or the team and go through this in detail with any of your colleagues that you think will be useful, by all means get in touch and we can set something up. And yeah, thanks for taking time out of your diaries, guys, and thanks for joining. I hope you found that useful. And remember, 75% unregulated purchase clean client bridging is back from now. So if you need any terms, give me a shout.
Hold on, Jez. There is a question from Javed. He's asked, landlord with no resi and let to housing association remortgage.
So landlord with no resi, let the housing association remortgage. Okay, so I'm taking that as he's already got a mortgage on the buy to let, so therefore they've got a mortgage track record, so that would be fine. This is going to come down to the agreement. So like I said, we need to have a term of no longer than 5 years, and there needs to be a break clause. So if you want to email me or Ali the agreement over, we'll review it and see if we can do it. But in principle, yes, that's fine.
Any other questions before we?
Cool. Right, guys, we'll let you go on time. So thank you all for joining. If there are any other questions, call me, email me, and yeah, thanks for being here today. Cheers all.
Thanks everyone. Cheers.